What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra, your Green Bay Packers podcast for the Eurostep Podcast Network and the Blue Wire family. As always, I am your host, Numac, and faithfully joining me once again is my co-host, Jordan Tresky. Jordan, how you doing, buddy?
Doing well, doing well. We're feeling it out. It's almost the end of May, Memorial Day weekend. Things are quiet out in the Midwest front. That's a play on a title. And bam, big news happens.
Before we get into the big news, I want to know your
Oh,
Memorial Day plans. What are you doing for the
uh,
holiday?
um, rolling out, um, looking towards the sky and just saluting. I shouldn't. I shouldn't. I shouldn't. I shouldn't do that. That's pretty disrespectful of me.
Stolen valor is
Uh,
not cool, Jordan.
no, no. I don't know. It's going to be weather dependent. Is also Memorial Day when you're kids. It's the big weekend that pools open in your
Yes,
local community. So when you're
yes,
a kid, that is the best day of the year.
it
It's
is.
also close to the end of school.
If you're an
Now
adult,
it's an
it's usually when Six Flags opens.
really. I did
Typically,
not. Well, that would make
typically,
sense too.
typically.
Yeah, yeah.
It's about this time of year.
Yeah. But now as an adult, the last thing I want to do is go to a pool with children running around and scaring me.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know. Maybe watch some Brewers. What are your Memorial Day?
Headed to the Northwoods.
Mm.
Head up to the Northwoods to go to the cabin. Sit on the lake, drink some ice cold brews, but cans that just say the word beer on the side because no free ads. No, it should be good.
You print them yourself,
That's right.
right?
Can never be pictured with a brand. You gotta be paid to be in my hand.
Yeah, generic can and all.
That's right. But yeah, like you had foreshadowed in your monologue there, big news coming out of Green Bay this week as the Green Bay Packers and I guess the Green Bay tourism industry, I think Discover Green Bay is the group, landed the 2025 NFL draft. Just a monumental achievement for the Packers as an organization and the city in general. Um, we're gonna get into all of the ramifications that this brings with it. But I think the biggest thing that should be stated to begin is Mark Murphy's life work as the Packers CEO is or president and CEO has come to fruition. Like I think they talked about it in his press conference. They talked about it just in on Twitter and everything else. But this is kind of the biggest NFL event that the Packers can host as a city of Green Bay size. So it's going to be awesome. There's already a lot of stuff in the works, but I guess we'll start with you first. Or what were your initial thoughts upon hearing the news break on a Tuesday, I think it was, or Monday?
Um, it was very sudden because I believe there were this obviously stemmed from a league meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and there was some news about prior to about San Francisco getting some, I forget, the 2026 Super Bowl, I think it was.
Think that.
So it wasn't really largely mentioned beforehand that, oh, we're going to announce the next site of the next draft that needed to get cited. Terrible way to say that, but you know what I was trying to get to. Because next year is going to be in Detroit, and as we'll get into in just the long saga of Green Bay trying to get this. Part of my reaction was based on that because it had been talked about for such a long time, and especially coming out of I hate to say coming out of the pandemic, but now I think can officially say that. I guess I don't know. Still exists, everybody. It still exists, but given all the restrictions and just the last 3 years of trying to bid for an NFL draft and doing that when there's a global pandemic and yada yada yada, there's just a lot of things you have to get into, and I don't know. It's been a long time coming, and I frankly just it was a matter of like it felt like it was going to be when, but the longer you go on and the fact that they've been pushing so hard as they have, and it hadn't uh, broken their way yet, you kind of start to wonder, well, if they get a draft. And unequivocally, they're obviously getting one now.
I agree with you there that it definitely was in the past like 5 years or so. It felt like when, not like it's not if, it's when. But then there was multiple years. I think it was sort of compounded by the fact that the Bucks weren't getting the All Star game for these last couple of years either. It just kind of felt like, man, like is Wisconsin just kind of not the venue that these major league teams really, or major leagues want to be coming for their marquee events like the All Star weekend or the draft or All Star weekend for the MLB. Like obviously Miller Park then got its own in 2002, if I'm not
Yep,
mistaken.
yep.
But that's
The
now
tie.
20 years ago.
Yeah,
So this will be like the first time that there's been something big like this in Wisconsin in almost 2 decades. So yeah, definitely cool that they actually got it, and I think that this is really the culmination of all of the work that Mark Murphy and the Packers have done to the the Packers sort of district, the Lambeau Field, the Titletown Lodge restaurant.
district,
Yeah,
whatever you
I
want to
guess
call it.
call it a district, where they built a little play field and have Hinterland and Titletown Brewing Company and all of that to go with the development that they've spurred with the Rest Center and the Expo Center, along with Holmgren Way there on the east side. It just becomes sort of that destination that you can kind of do everything right there by Lambeau. And it wasn't like that 15, 20 years ago. Like I think I mentioned on the pod when we started, I grew up under the shadow of Lambeau Field. I was the last house on Brookwood Drive before they tore it all down behind Kmart. I remember going to get donuts at the bakery and people staying at the Red Roof Inn just next to that, and going into Kmart to get sodas out of the auto center. Like I grew up right there, and it's changed so much in the now 20 years since then that it's really cool to see it sort of blossom into what it's become for the Packers. But it's also without a doubt the biggest draw of now why they can host the draft there. 20 years ago, it ain't happening there. You're not putting the draft in the parking lot of Kmart and Big Lots.
Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. It doesn't happen without the draft starting to move from city to city,
hmm
and essentially, I mean, this is what it will be. It's like a tourism ad
Yep.
or pro. You know what I mean? Like that. That's what why you want to vie for something like this when you're not going to in comparison to the Super Bowl stadiums and all that stuff,
Right.
it's largely like the same six stadiums that we end up seeing. It's Miami, Tampa Bay, Houston's increasingly got
Dallas,
some, Dallas, New
Arizona,
Orleans, Arizona. I guess I think that's 36, but now,
Indy. Well, it's mostly all the domed stadiums, right? Like
yeah,
it's the same
Minnesota got one too.
it's the same rotation that gets like the Final Fours now. Like that same
Yes,
rotation of any metropolitan city that has a football or bigger stadium, essentially.
these magnets.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And they have openly acknowledged that, yeah, we're probably never going to be able to host a Super Bowl for a lot of reasons outside of, what the unpredictability. It's not unpredictability. It's very easy to predict that the
hmm
weather's going to be pretty shitty
Yeah.
when the
It'll be
Super Bowl is
cold.
going to be held. Yeah. And on top of everything else in terms of like, as we'll get into with some, probably the reaction
hmm
in some corners, the infrastructure and all that stuff. So you're putting all your eggs in like, hey, let's host a draft for. It's not just a 3 day weekend. It's going to be that whole week leading up to it, and just trying to set up as good of an event as they can in the smallest city in the NFL and all of the
Major League
core
Sports. Yeah.
sports. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it's not even like to touch on that more. It's not even like a capacity issue. The Packers have the second largest stadium in the NFL, and like it's Green Bay. The capacity of Lambeau Field is 81,000, and I think the Green Bay Metro is like 250 or something. So
city itself is 106 something,
yeah, like
which
it's
is crazy.
you could fit most of Green Bay in Lambeau Field, which is
Uh-huh.
a
Got a lot of
crazy.
standing room. but
Right.
nothing bad.
And that's like talk that like speaks to a lot of the geography of Green Bay too. Like Green Bay itself as a city is not very large. Like the city limits aren't very big, but you
Yeah,
have Howard Salmaco, Ashwaubenon, where I grew up, um, Howard Salmaco, Ashwaubenon, De Pere, Bellevue, sort of all of the areas around Green Bay, like the suburbs, quote unquote, of
yeah.
Green Bay, that make up a big chunk of the market in Green Bay, essentially. So, yeah, it's just cool, and I think we can touch on some of the highlights that they said the NFL will bring. $94 million in estimated economic impact. Like it's just an incredible asset for Green Bay to get shown off like this, and speaks to the come up that the Packers have had on this city. It's been a long time since they've been bad enough to where the Packers were a detriment to the city back in the 70s and 80s, excuse me. And I think I told this on the pod too before is that a lot of business owners have successful, like pretty much ingrained roots in the city because of the Packers and the people that it brought to Green Bay. It's ridiculous how much of an impact this team has had on the city, given its rich history, obviously, but even the economic impact. Like, I don't know how many listeners have been up to Green Bay recently or been there in the last 5 years, but if you go down Oneida Avenue or Oneida Street from where which runs in between Lambeau Field and the Rest Center, and go south towards essentially south towards the mall, all of that is getting to be new businesses and new just buildings replacing old ones that were old and run down and built in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it's just cool to see that this is really spurred by the influx of people going there, as well as just having the ability to sustain all these new businesses. Like, it's funny to say, but like Chick-fil-A is in Green Bay now. Popeyes is in Green Bay now. That wasn't a thing when I was a kid. And it's not like they weren't around. They just, people are realizing that there's people there, that there's a vibrant community of people that will go out to eat. Even it's funny to say to go out to eat at Chick-fil-A or Popeyes, but it's recognized as a destination. There's just new businesses coming to Green Bay, and I think it's a city on the come up as much as it is just a nice suburban family city for what it's worth.
You mentioned $94 million impact, estimated economic impact.
Yep.
That's roughly 6 times more than the average home game. And
So
considering those are 8 days, like I know if we're getting down to brass tacks here, um, we're talking about 3 days of like the actual draft itself.
right.
A week long process. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of other things in the lead up to of just like ceremony, ribbon cutting, blah blah blah, little things like that. That's obviously exists with you know stuff like this. But that's pretty incredible that it could be that large of an impact
Yeah.
and make such a footprint in this a matter of a week.
Yeah.
Really, you know what I mean? And again, it's we're focused on the Green Bay aspect of it, obviously,
Hmm.
but it's gonna the tentacles of it are gonna trickle down to where we are in Milwaukee and stuff like that. Like it's similar to how when Whistling Straits had the Ryder Cup
Yep. Or
and
Whistling
how
Straits had all of their PGA championships or anything like that. Aaron Hills had the U.S. Open. Like
yes,
any of those
yeah,
big events.
and that like that stuff it's not just in one city. It shoots all the way over.
Right.
And especially when it's planned out this far in advance too. So it's gonna have some pretty big impact in that way. And I think to your point too, like you mentioned all the businesses that are obviously gonna feel the positivity and effect like good effects of having an event like this. They're also invested in this. Like a lot of
Hmm.
those players, people and businesses and stuff like that, like it's their shareholders. They're I mean like it's Packers, all the stock and all that stuff is like it's gotten big to the point where the bandwidth is beyond just the city itself, but like
Right.
it's pretty ingrained, obviously, within just you know the city limits or surrounding areas too.
Right. And like I might be mistaken, but there's like obviously with the Packers being a publicly owned company, they have a board of directors and they
Yep,
have
you're right.
these lists of people that, given obviously it's a board of directors, there's going to be it's going to be a quote unquote a good old boys club for what it's worth, and it's going to be a bunch of rich people, but it's rich people that have stake in the community. Like I had friends whose like one of their parents was on the board, and it's just like he owned a prominent business in Green Bay, and so they have a purpose and a real feeling and love of the team and how it can help the city and how it can actually help the surrounding communities to get other businesses and businesses involved in helping the local economy. Like Sargento has been a like prominent Packers sponsor for a very long time, Wisconsin-based company, and it's just things like that that are really, I guess it's obviously a mutual relationship between a big business and a big company or a big sports organization like the Packers. Like obviously, doesn't mean it doesn't help the Sargento and its employees and everybody else involved in that operation. And
Yeah.
that helps all the business owners. Like I remember it was kind of like goofy to think about, but I don't know if you remember after in 20 I think it was 2014 when they had the replacement refs, right?
Oh, the fail Mary. I think that was a couple years earlier.
Whenever I think it was after the Super Bowl, I think before 2014, whenever it was.
Yeah.
Um I think it was Tom Schmidt was the old mayor, I believe was his name. Wrote a letter to the NFL and said, "Hey, like your games, given that there are so few of them, matter to to a city like Green Bay. A one loss difference in a seed could mean one less playoff game, which could mean X amount of money not coming into our city. And being the smallest city, we need it." And it's just like, yeah, those things matter. It's like the city relies on the Packers, and it's really cool to see that this is another opportunity for not the Packers to quote unquote give back. The Packers are getting plenty out of this, but it's
Yeah.
important that they're recognizing that this is that they teamed up with Discover Green Bay to get this bid across the finish line.
Yeah, that's where all the reporting and there's been some really good work from Packers team website. I'm going to butcher his name. Wes
Yep. West
um
H.
that Wes H. Had a brilliant roundup of a press conference that Mark Murphy and the Packers and Discover Green Bay and did Wednesday morning. They were recording this. Um, and it basically, the bid really started to gain traction when Packers and Discover Green Bay came together in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Packers, according to Mark Murphy, have been going at this since 2016, so roughly 7 years. But getting the tourism, what would you call it, organization,
Yeah.
um, involved in this really started to kind of, I don't know, put the pieces in a place where they could actually reasonably plan out how this would actually work and all this stuff and just luring. I'm sure it's, like anything, it's basically just boosters
Right.
continually just getting their name in with it. And I think even um I have a quote from VP of marketing and fan engagement, Gabriella Dow. They're the first team to have driven the draft bid process with the league, whatever that means. But
I think it's
um,
like the
I
probably
would,
the Packers are the first team that like the Packers wanted it to come to Green Bay, not the
yeah,
local tourism agency.
exactly. Yeah, it's not like Kansas City or Detroit or
Right.
whoever is hosted the last Nashville,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Vegas.
Vegas, yep.
Yeah, I think that's it goes to it speaks a lot to how much the Packers actually care about the fans and care about, again, we talked about the city. Um I I was trying to make a transition there, but I'll leave it for later. It's it's just cool. It's just so cool to have this for Green Bay, and hopefully Green Bay kind of shines in this spotlight like it should. Um Green Bay, for all what it's worth, I have mixed feeling towards it as a man who grew up there, but for what it is. It's a great football city. It's a great football town, and has a rich history for the game. I think that's gonna be like one of the cooler parts just of this draft experience is that this won't be a 3 day event for whoever attends it. It's gonna be like a week long thing for everybody because
Well, yeah,
it has
exactly.
to be for how much you need to see and how much you need to take in within the Green Bay experience, like a field tour or going through the Hall of Fame, experiencing just like the bars around there. It's just you kind of need to be there for a couple of days outside of just the draft. And I think like it's going to be such a cool atmosphere. I'm trying to picture where they're going to do it. And I kind of imagine them doing it on the east entrance where they're doing all the construction right now. And then um
Okay.
walking like up the stairs or doing something up those stairs then to get your hat and all that good stuff. But there's that big parking lot they'll probably close down Oneida and have that. But then you have that street. I think it's Veterans Memorial Way that goes from, if you're familiar with Green Bay, from Stadium View. You have a straight
Yep.
look at the east entrance, and
Yep.
there's a little. I think it's like the Johnsonville Pavilion or something where
Something
there's
like that. Yeah.
that they can get food there, and there's all the like quote unquote seating where people can stand, and you won't even have to have players out there. They can come from the entrance of Lambeau and filter in that way, coming out towards like the stage. So yeah, it's a really cool chance to just fill that block of people right outside Ray HG Field, and just let everybody see the draft. So it'll be really cool. It'll be really cool. I'm hoping I get to go. We'll see when it comes if I can. We can head up there together. But
That would be fun.
it would be fun. So
Um,
not
your
that.
point
So
to
go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry,
Nope.
your
Go.
point about uh we host a Packers podcast. We know what it's like. You lived in the city. I did not, but
Yeah.
I have been to Green Bay plenty of times, seen games, all that stuff. What we take for granted, and I don't think I would. It's different when you live there and or live surrounding area where you can be like, oh yeah, we'll go up to Green Bay and see a game, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It's something that you can do. If you're an outsider who's never been to Lambeau, and yeah, it's not a football game, I understand. It's like there's only 8 of them, and hopefully maybe 9 or 10 if they go deep in the playoffs. But um, the fact that obviously they're going to have a lot of events, and they're one of the big things that they are hitting home very early on in this process is that it's going to honor Green Bay, the history of the team, and stuff like that. And if there's one thing that the Packers do better than anyone in the state of the 3 big teams, it's honoring their history.
Well, and
And
and to be fair, they're
they
double
have
the
his
they have double the age of the oldest franchise in the city.
It's very true, but it's still they do it in a way that is very manning towards the other two. Um, but if you're an outsider and you're like, hey, I have always wanted to go to Green Bay, I've always wanted to see Lambeau Field, and you go have the ability to go see the draft, see Green Bay, going through the Hall of Fame is like amazing. It's one of those things where I could go all more than once,
Yeah.
just because there's so many. It's just jam packed with lore and history, and just it's well crafted, well made, all that stuff. So I think that's going to be very exciting for me. Is just like I understand a lot of the questions about like logistics and how this is actually going to work. What if it snows? What if it's cold?
Well,
All that stuff.
the Matt Schneeman from the Athletic tweeted this afternoon, Wednesday afternoon. Um, he said, "quote It dumped snow on May 1 in Green Bay this year." Mark Murphy said he discussed the possibility of it snowing for the draft here in 2025 with Peter O'Reilly from the NFL League office. O'Reilly's response per Murphy, quote, "That would be great." Like, I don't think the NFL is afraid of just like showcasing Green Bay as a city. Yeah, it'll be cold. Like, if it's cold on May 1, it's cold on May 1. But
Yeah,
imagine it does like snow like that. Like, that'd be kind of like, it'd be
it'd
cool.
be authentic.
Yes, that is the right word. It'd be authentic. It
Yep,
wouldn't be Vegas or it wouldn't be Kansas City. It wouldn't be anything like that. It would just be Green Bay, frozen tundra in May.
yep, yep. Um, Question for you,
Okay.
because feel like when we talk about him, it's a very there's the on-field performance of the team, but when it comes to stuff like this, in his role as president of the Packers, you know who I'm talking about now.
Yep.
Um, I'm gonna have to read this really quick. Um, this is essentially going to be Mark Murphy's last hurrah as Packers president because he's going to hit the team mandated age
70-year-old.
70
Yep.
retirement. Yes.
Yep. He turns
His
seven,
last day his last day will be on July 13th, 2025. So that
which
is
is his birthday.
roughly oh it is. Oh. So it's like, hey, we got you a card. It says happy retirement. You got to get out of here. You
Yeah.
got to vacate the premises.
Yep. The Packers say like their bylaws say that the CEO cannot be older than 70 years old. They have to retire. So go on with your question.
God, if only we did that with
Not that.
presidents. Sorry. What does this? What does this mean for? It feels weird to ask that question about legacy for before it actually happens, but it is a bigger deal when it's the Packers and stuff like that. But do you have any thoughts on Mark Murphy's efforts and to put the Packers in the best position forward as he will end his tenure not long after that?
So Mark Murphy succeeded Bob Harlan as Packers CEO. Bob Harlan, notably the CEO and president of the Packers that took the Packers out of the doldrums and made them into a respectable franchise once again, and was really influential and the mastermind behind creating Green Bay as sort of the place to be as a football fan. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
steal the phrase because I'm thinking of it. Zach Crucy mentioning calling it the mecca of football, which is, excuse me, very appropriate given that I've told multiple people that aren't fans of the Packers or are just or just football fans in general, whether it be the Vikings, any other team, Eagles, whatever, people's fans I know of that like just are football fans, that you have to go to Green Bay at least once and see a game at Lambeau Field. Like it's just cool to take it all in, see the 60-foot Lombardi trophy they have outside the atrium, see the statues of Lombardi and Curly Lambeau, and just take in what is the history of the game and probably the best history of the game you can probably get outside of Canton. And so that's kudos to Bob Harlan to really starting to kick this off. As I mentioned, he took over for Bob Harlan in 2007. Since then, probably what 14 no, it'll be 18 years of reign, I'll say, of leadership under Mark Murphy, and a pretty good stretch of Packers football, if we do say so ourselves under that time.
Mm-hmm.
But I touched on it earlier. The amount of development that has went into that part of Green Bay has been simply unheralded. There's been so many updates to Lambeau itself. Obviously, Bob Harlan was sort of the director and the leader behind the whole addition of the atrium in the early 2000s. But that doesn't mean there wasn't so much added to Lambeau Field itself. Like, I think in 2011, they held the stock sale that added on to the south end zone, that added the big, huge new scoreboard, added like 10, 15,000 seats, and kind of started the expansion of Lambeau Field's footprint, quote unquote. That was the Titletown district. That was buying up all the houses like the one I used to live in to expand for on-site parking and other amenities that they want to do there at Lambeau. And just making it, like you said, a destination for people to come and visit. So off on the field stuff aside, there's really no way you can call Mark Murphy's tenure as a president and CEO a failure. He helped continue to build the legacy that Bob Harlan started of the Packers into what it is today and what it's projected to become, because the draft isn't going to hinder this growth at all. If anything, it's going to spur it and have opportunity for more development to come along. Like, I think one of the coolest things, and this isn't anything the Packers have done, but if when you go um, down Lombardi Avenue, there's 10, 15 houses. It's basically the block. It's 1200 block of Lombardi Avenue, but the north side of it that isn't Lambeau Field, and
Okay.
it's all the houses you see on the primetime football games.
Yeah.
It's all of those. When I was a kid, those were there. They were just houses, and there was one house that had the fence painted, that had some sort of inspirational message or some sort of Packers pun. It was one. And now it's like six or seven. They've painted it like a mural, or they have like not figurines, wooden cutouts of players painted making like all-star catches or things like that. Like it's really just building that community from a fan standpoint that has really just kind of drives home what Green Bay is. It's not Dallas, it's not Chicago, it's not LA when it comes to a sports city. It's something unique in that it's Lambeau Field before the all the renovations was dropped right in the middle of a neighborhood. And
Yep.
before that in the 60s, it was right in the middle of a farm field. Like
Yep.
it's something unique in that it's been this like we said before, this mecca of football for the last 100 years. And it's kind of drawn back a little bit now that they have so much parking like right on site, but parking cars on yards and driveways still exists. Like that's going to happen, and it's going to be
Yeah.
cool for people to see. Like you can see it on TV for maybe 10, 15 seconds as they do promos. But to kind of walk around and get the vibe of what tailgating is and what tailgating actually is, not in a parking lot, but it's in somebody's yard. They've got a tent with porta potties and they bring in the whole 9 yards. It's really cool. It's something special. Like I did it as a kid. Not I did it, but my family did it when I was a kid when we lived on that in that house or that duplex. And it's just cool. It's community. It's something that you don't really see that much anymore outside of fandoms. And this is like fandom to the nth degree when you get a nice fall Wisconsin day. And for those of you that don't know, fall Wisconsin, pretty great. And
Yeah.
it's just an awesome time to be out there tailgating and really experiencing the vibe and just the general happiness that comes with a Packers football Sunday when it's nice out and you can tailgate, pop down a grill, and carry a cheer on the Packers.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you completely. Um, Bob Harlan had some pretty big shoes to fill,
Yeah,
and Mark Murphy waded in some waters right away when he took over as president.
yeah.
Um,
That was like
and
that was the first that was the last Rodgers or Favre season.
mhm,
Like that's and they traded him the next year, the next offseason.
yeah, he has been around the block, uh, say it mildly, but in terms of like, I think your point, and I can't compare to actually living in the city or and stuff like that, but the commercial element of the surrounding area and all the things that have really spurred over the last, not to it's coincided with Mark Murphy's presidency.
Right.
um it's been crazy, and especially as a kid that I remember going to training camp and staying at a Best Western I don't think exists anywhere or there anymore. um and how far different it was, but you didn't think anything of it because it was just what it was.
Right.
It was what existed to you. So it's like, oh, this is how it is everywhere. It's like, no, that is not how it exists everywhere. And it is a lot more scattered. And obviously, going to Packer games has been vastly different since they've done a lot of the renovations and construction and all that stuff. But that to me is like everything around the area, and to really hone in on this is Wisconsin's team and all this stuff, but it's mainly Green Bay's team,
Mm-hmm.
which again, 30 years ago, it was they're playing games in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that wasn't even their biggest like that. It's a big ask of and a long tail of like how long the city has really stepped up for the team, even when, fans weren't selling out or wasn't like it is now. So yeah, I think that's where it's like we can talk about, you know, how the performance on the field and stuff like this, but like this is going to be an event remembered for a very long time.
Yeah, it'll
And
it'll be a watershed moment for the Packers in the city.
absolutely, I don't know how they could take it any other way, especially, just given all the stakes and stuff around it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, if it goes incredibly well, it probably won't be the last time that they host it either,
Yeah,
which that's
that's good.
enough
Yeah.
to kind of keep it going. But I think too, I think just the timing. I remember again coming out of COVID and stuff like that, and how big of a thing it was when fans couldn't go to games.
Hmm.
And I remember Mike Holmgren, who I believe still lives in Green Bay in some capacity. I don't know
I don't
specifics.
think so, but I don't know for sure.
No. Well, anyway, he was
I
talking about
know Mike
how
McCarthy had ties to Green Bay before he left. Like
that is true. Yes.
before he got fired, he like had his roots in Green Bay, so like he
Yep.
still had ties
And
to
I
the
think
city.
his wife was something. It was something like that.
Yeah, his
No, that
kid.
was Pittsburgh.
Yeah, his kids were enrolled in high school in Green Bay.
Yeah, and he
So
caught, yelled at a ref.
yep.
Um. Anyway, Mike Holmgren, he mentioned something about just the devastating effect it had on businesses
Hmm.
because yeah, it's one thing to have you can't have fans at the stadiums. That also means that you can't have fans at bars and breweries, blah 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 blah, and so
Yep.
on and so on. So to have this come out, this it's going to be nearly 5 years after just the horrible year that was 2020.
Yep.
That is really big on that community, and it's I my hat is tipped towards everybody in Green Bay and everything like that.
Yeah, it's gonna be really cool. It's gonna be really cool. It's gonna be important for the city, and I think there was a couple more things that we had talked about, um, just in our DMs about it. Oh, the Packers are looking at getting Amtrak to come up to Green Bay to get the shuttle people in essentially. So that'll be good. Um, they looked at having cruise ships come in, which is really cool.
That'd be really really cool.
I don't know where they dock, probably somewhere over near Bay Beach under the Tower Drive Bridge and
Gotta be.
somewhere over there. But Tower Drive's tall. You can fit big cruise liners under it. Like it's big enough for the freighters, which is why Green Bay is as big as it is in the first place, is because it's a shipping town for
Yeah.
all intents and purposes. So, um, they also looked at bringing Uber and Lyft in to expand their footprint there for the draft as well. But I think what's like still just cool about the Packers and its relationship with Green Bay in the first place is that the Packers' legacy isn't 1265 Lombardi Avenue.
Yeah.
It's it's got its tentacles, like you to say earlier, across all of the city. You can go over to near Hagermeister Park on the west or on the east side of town and see a couple of important monuments over there for the Packers, where they've built little statues and memorials and things like that. Like you can kind of take the city tour and kind of find places where there's been important moments for the Packers all over the place, and it allows
Are
you
you talking
to
about the Heritage Trail? Is that what it is? Right?
um
Or is it separate to the Packers themselves?
I think it's different.
Okay.
Different. I'm talking over on the east side by Hagermeister Park. It's where like they have the statue of all like the people, like all the fans and the band playing. Like they show that on primetime once in a while too, but I forget what it's called. But it's over there, and like it's you can go over to East High School and be sort of right near where the original county stadium was for the Packers. And like they didn't always play at Lambeau. They played
Yep.
over on the east side. And like there's history just all over the city tied to the Packers, and it's just cool. It's just cool. So, um, anything else that we haven't touched on? We talked about the 94 million in economic impact, 94 million on the state, 20 million locally. They expect 250,000 people.
That's,
They
I think.
expect
Oh yeah, that was yeah. 300,000 in Kansas City for the draft this year.
yeah.
Um, 250,000 people. That's a lot of people.
It's as big as Green Bay is now. The city's going to double in people.
Double in size. Oh man,
Like
that's a lot.
this reaction we're having is why the Super Bowl isn't coming to Green Bay,
Yeah. Yes.
which is fine, which is all well and good. It's just like it'll be cool, and I think it'll be an experience. It'll probably be shoulder to shoulder, but it'll be cool. It'll be cool. Um, let's try to make sure we're not skipping anything before we move on. I don't think so. You have anything else to say?
No, I'm looking forward to it. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
No dates yet. Obviously,
No, end of April
end of April,
ish.
early May, whatever it is,
Yeah.
whatever
Whatever weekend.
weekend that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm very excited. I think it's gonna be fun.
Awesome. Should we move on to OTAs?
Let's do it.
OTAs this week. A lot of the Packers second stringers and some of the starters that needed some work coming off of last year back in Green Bay, doing just walkthroughs, nothing too strenuous. A lot of just shorts and t-shirts or jerseys rather than pads. No pads essentially, obviously. Couple of notes before we talk about individual performances. Nothing too big individually, but the Packers cut their kicker Parker White, leaving Anders Carlson as the only kicker on the 90-man roster. So, as we kind of talked about last week, not so much about Mason Crosby coming back, but we'll see. I'd be surprised if they didn't have some sort of kicking competition in training camp. Like somebody gets hurt, and instead of bringing in a depth piece, they see a kicker. Especially
I
like
mean,
he's a rookie kicker. Like no competition would be crazy, right? Crazy.
no, yeah, that would be pretty crazy. I mean, they had key competitions with Mason Crosby, and it wasn't just Parker White. It was what's his name?
Riz Ahmed.
I was going to say it the other way because I mix him up with the actor in The Sound of Metal or The Night of Riz Ahmed. Um, just with his name. Um, yeah, I think that would be pretty crazy. And plus, too, I mean, we saw a lot of changes already to the 90-man roster the last couple of days, so
Yep.
it's always very fluid. So I would not. It'd be very surprising to see Anders Carlson not
Not
having like
not pressured.
yeah.
Right.
But that said, all Anders all the time, right?
Sure. I have absolutely zero idea what you're talking about.
I don't
But
know.
I'll roll with you. I'll roll with you. Um, the Packers also implemented, or not the Packers, the NFL implemented new rules for the kickoff. Excuse me. Any fair catch is going to be brought up to 25. It doesn't matter if it's in the end zone or at the 24-yard line or at the 1 yard line. A fair catch comes out to the 25 on a kickoff. I guess what is your initial feelings on that? Just briefly. We don't need to talk. We don't need to go into it.
I just I'm flummoxed. Can you do a fair catch on a kickoff?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just
Usually you don't because
because you would take it at
they're
the
starting from the 35. Like a fair catch at the 10 isn't going to do like rarely are you actually getting tackled at the 10-yard line when you catch a ball on a kickoff.
yeah.
Like it's not like a punt where there's hang time. Usually kickoffs are pretty straight and you have an opportunity to get maybe 6, 7 more yards as opposed to a punt where you can have a punt that's really high and
I
have
was gonna
no
say
chance to get the Gunners down.
it's a lot more common in punts and therefore a bigger deal. Like
Yeah.
I would really wonder how often someone fair caught on a kickoff.
How often this happens? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Um, it is what it is. I again, with that in mind, I'm nonplussed
yeah.
by this development.
Neither is Keyshawn Nixon. He said he
Boom.
was undeterred by the new kickoff rules, and talked about how he wanted to be all pro on defense by honing in his abilities as a slot corner as well as special teams. And LaFleur winked at him when pressed over whether he could see snaps on offense. Worth noting that in OTAs, I gotta find my tweet here, that Ryan Wood on Tuesday talked about. This I'll just read the tweet. Damn good coverage by Keyshawn Nixon down the right side against Christian Watson. Use the sideline to pin the bigger wide receiver, preventing Watson from catching Jordan Love's pass. You can see why the Packers are intrigued with Nixon in the slot, competing every rep. So maybe not the option at safety, but for sure that nickel or dime corner that they can really rely on to hopefully be better this year than he was last year. But if you're keeping pace with Christian Watson, you got some sort of talent, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Um, yeah, I'm very excited with Keyshawn Nixon. He's already an exciting player to begin with because he just has that amazing impact. He also talked about how last year was nothing. It wasn't nothing, but he said something about
He
along
wasn't
the
at
lines of
his
like he
best.
was. Yeah, he was at his best, which is like crazy because you literally were the MVP of
The Packers
the
special
season.
teams, yeah.
No, not even special teams.
Okay, well, we won't go into it. Go ahead.
Um, but clearly confidence player. I am very intrigued by him being used in like this like Shohei Ohtani is the he's not that yet,
Right.
but just to be used in so many different ways of like he's gonna play slot, um, and they're gonna need that even more so considering other things going on with the secondary, but like special teams impact. I don't know, just have him on the field. He makes plays. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm. Look at you segueing into Eric Stokes. um, it came out at this press conference during OTAs this week that Eric Stokes um, revealed that he had torn his meniscus and suffered a Liz Frank injury, which is in your foot, and had injury on both at the same time last November when he injured them against the Lions. The Liz Frank injury required a plate and two screws to repair it, and he couldn't walk until mid-January and was just cleared to run less than a month ago. No timeline set for his return, but they aren't ruling out being ready at some point during training camp. I don't think he'll be ready for training camp. That's like running beginning of May. That's a lot of conditioning. That's a lot of conditioning that needs to get redone and get like conditioning aside, just like in the purest form of conditioning, just being healthy enough and in shape enough to play 70 snaps in an NFL game. The flip side of that is being conditioned enough to cover an NFL wide receiver in a game for those 70 snaps. And I think it's going to take a while. I would more expect him to be ready middle of the season, but I think that's where Keyshawn Nixon will be important. Is that if Eric Stokes does miss a significant amount of the season, which I am anticipating he will, very important that he kind of steps up and is that hopefully lockdown corner that they can have at the slot position.
Yeah, that was my ultimate takeaway. We talked about last week and just how we still really didn't know what he
Right.
suffered. There was some speculation. I think he was talking about um, how obviously much of a journey he had gone on. Yeah, those two injuries are not great.
No, and at
And
the
it's
same time, just
certainly
not good.
no, and it added to just like how confusing it was and just how horrific of an injury you suffered and just how that was handled. Not that it falls on the Packers' head or anything like that, but
Mm-hmm.
like that's going to take a lot to come back from. And to your point, like we always talk about getting ready. There's two parts of it. Someone gets hurt. It's always about rehabbing, getting to the point where they're fully healthy,
Mm-hmm.
and that they can play a full game or a majority of snaps in the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's another thing to get to that point and then, okay, how ready are you going to be when you're playing those games and giving maximum effort? Being a cornerback, especially, just puts a limit on your body and your athletic abilities, all that stuff.
Lot of lower body movement.
Exactly. Hips turning, just
Hips turning, like exploding out of your knee, like this the way your feet move, backpedaling, and um, I forget what the the leg movement is called. I don't know what it's called. Basically, when you go front leg in front of one leg, then the other
Oh,
one's
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that
I know
movement.
exactly. Yep,
Like that's hard on your feet because you're on the balls of your feet, right? The balls of your feet,
yep,
the front part of your feet, and
yep.
that's where your Liz. If I'm not mistaken, your Liz Frank goes over the arch of your foot, doesn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, we need Rohan.
We need row. I think so. Then we learned that it's not. But
Gotta Google it.
um, yeah, I mean, I think we were already kind of conditioned to kind of like, well, this could be a lengthier process than just um Stokes coming back. Numac's face tells me that we might be wrong.
No, we're right. It's like I never had seen like the pictures of the bone of your foot. I don't like it. It gives me the ick.
Gives you the ick.
Yeah, but yes, it
What is
is.
that
It's basically well, no, like I didn't. We're not going into anatomy. It is. It's basically the ligament between your
like?
big toe and your middle toe, but like in the middle of your foot, because like you
Oh,
have the
okay.
three small bones in your toes, then you have the long one in the middle of your feet. It's where the big toe and the second toe meet in the middle of your foot. It's the ligament that connects those
Oh,
two.
okay. Um, yeah, what was this? Or so basically, we were expecting Stokes to not be ready by the start of the season in
Yeah,
some kind of capacity of whether, yeah, he's practicing, he's ready, but he's not game ready kind of
yeah.
thing.
A lot,
And
Bakhtiari-esque, frankly.
yeah, I was gonna say, given how the Packers medical staff has largely been with significant injuries, it's definitely gonna drag into the season and all that stuff. So it's good that they have Russell Douglas, Jair Alexander, and they're really, really trying to
Mixing Keyshawn
make
Nixon.
you exactly. So yeah, I'm very intrigued by that. But
They
it'll be
also drafted Valentine out of Kentucky in the seventh
that's
round.
right, seventh rounder,
We
seventh
talked about it
rounder.
in our draft pod, and I'm not gonna say that I was right because we were just guessing anyways. But when we tried to mock our second and third round picks for defense, if they were taking defensive players there, I'm pretty sure I think you might touch on it too, mentioned that it might have not been a bad idea, depending on who was there, to draft a cornerback if Eric Stokes' injury was as bad as it was. Like I
Yep.
think I had like Keely Ringo as one of their targets.
Yes. Yes, you did.
As like if Eric Stokes' injury is bad, it might not be a bad idea to take a swing on a quarterback early if it's as bad as it is, considering we had no information on it. And it's kind of as bad as we think it was. Like these are two significant injuries that,
Honestly, I would say it's probably worse than
yeah,
like a torn ACL or yeah, I mean like it
not
that
walking
is
until
like
January is bad.
yep. Because that
Like
was week 9. That was what
no, it was early
late.
November,
Yeah. That's a
so
good 2 months, 2.5 months.
I'm just not walking on is tough. So we'll see. We hope the best for Eric Stokes. Obviously, he was having a rough year to start last year, but that doesn't mean he wasn't good the year before that.
Yeah.
And I think, frankly, they need him. Um,
Same.
like it's not deep at DB for the Packers. It's like Jair and Razul are the guys. As soon as you start dipping into Keyshawn Nixon on the outside, you're gonna be looking rough, as all respect to Keyshawn Nixon deserves. At this point, he's still a slot corner, which is the
It's a different beast.
usually the secondary player when it comes there. And then Dime is the sixth, so he's still that fringe player. He's not the four. He's not in the top four of the secondary. He's solidly five.
Yeah, I'm looking at the other cornerbacks on this list. We're talking Corey Ballantyne, Shamar John Charles is still on the team.
Corey Valentine, like not the guy they just drafted. They have two Valentines
No,
now.
they have Ballantyne, and now they have
Valent,
Carrington Valentine.
got it. I misheard you. My apologies.
Keandre Thomas, I think, is a 90-man guy. Who knows if he actually really sticks with the team, but still,
Yeah, he was a draft pick last year, wasn't he? Maybe I forget,
uh,
but
he was undrafted.
I got it. Okay, so Well, no, it doesn't
I
matter.
know, I
Yeah.
got it.
Um.
But to your point, it gets thin very fast.
Yeah. And
In the secondary overall.
yeah. And yeah. Exactly. It's not like the secondary was like amazing last year, anyways. So we kind of just need the Packers need to have that locked down and hopefully stay healthy throughout the year, and then get Eric Stokes back, and he shallow of some sort of miracle or short of some sort of miracle is right back to a starting caliber DB right away.
Honestly, I probably want to go this far.
No,
It depending on how long it takes Eric Stokes to really get up to game speed and all that stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if like the Packers are like tied to like free agent quarterbacks that are still out in the market. And
yeah,
yeah, I mean,
anybody that
I'm
gets
not
cut, anything like that, yeah,
I'm not expecting like a Razul thing because that was found money and stuff like that.
needle in a haystack, yeah,
Yeah, but I don't know that it, again, just nature of the circumstances, the depth behind Stokes, and you don't really want to put Keyshawn Nixon in that spot unless he takes it for all it's worth. But um, yeah, will be a very interesting amount for the secondary on top of everything else like safety or whatever the Packers want to do.
right. I'm just trying to go through and see who's available for any sort of cornerback play. Byron Jones is available, so just a name. Marcus Peters is available. Casey Hayward's still out there.
Really?
He's 33, but he's still available. Excuse me. Eli Apple is still available. So there's not a lack of names like there was for backup quarterbacks we talked about earlier in the offseason.
Or even
So
safety
yeah,
to a
that safety
degree.
too. But there's people available. We could bring back Josh Jackson. He's still out there. Played
Isaac
for
Yadam or
played for
Yadam,
Arizona last year. Who was that?
the guy that they traded Josh Jackson for, from the Giants,
Gotcha,
Isaac Yadam or whatever his name was.
gotcha. Um, yeah. So there's options. Kyle Fuller is available. Played for Baltimore last year. So there's options available. We'll see. So I don't think they go into the season with like Jair Razul, Keyshawn. Honestly, like I think they'll probably bring in somebody else with whatever cap they have, just to see. That's also kind of what they got to navigate to is they're kind of capped out with the last year of the
Yeah.
Rodgers contract. So, um, probably worth mentioning who was available at OTAs. Roll call. People not present. This is according to Rob Dombrowski. Dalen Levitt, Jair Alexander, Russell Douglas, Jonathan Garvin, David Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, and Preston Smith. Um, but Levitt, Bakhtiari, Jenkins, and Preston Smith have been in town for most of the offseason for what it's worth. There, but not practicing or rehabbing, but are or limited, was Eric Stokes, Lou Nichols, the rookie running back, Jake Hansen, John DeLance, and Grant DuBois. And Rashawn Gary did some jog through on 11 on 11. So that's a good development as opposed to
Wow.
the bad Eric Stokes news.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Sean Gary is an animal.
he is, in fact, that dude. Um, Anything else that we haven't touched on? I guess, do you want to go through a little bit of what you saw on Twitter if you did see anything? I guess like I saw a little bit about OTA performances.
I did
Um,
not see any very little of
so
OT performances, so I
I'll
know
just
that
kind
you
of
have it.
summarize what I saw. Um, Jordan Love was streaky to begin with, but it's OTAs. I'm not too concerned. He had a pretty poor first half of red zone drills, like just missing throws. I think at one point he was like 3 for 12 or something. Um, and then when they broke up and then went back for a second round of red zone drills, he did a lot better. Had a touchdown on a nice pass, I think, to AJ Dillon in the end zone. A couple of drops that didn't help him either. Um, Dontavion Wicks was wowing some people with his pass, with his catches from Danny Etling with the twos. So might be worth keeping an eye on him when training camps through how he goes. I guess Samare Toure did pretty good as well for what it's
Hmm.
worth. So I think the biggest. I think this is in Bill Huber's roundup. I can find the tab. Um, the player of the day for Tuesday was Lukas Van Ness, and I'm trying to find. This is from Coach LaFleur on him. Quote, I think he's done a nice job, and certainly you can see the skill set that he possesses. He's a big, strong, fast guy. He's a worker. That's all you can ask for. We're going to keep putting more on his plate and see what he can handle and see how he adapts and learns the speed and the techniques you've got to use at this level. So basically, he was drafted to be an explosive player, and he was showing off his explosiveness in OTAs, which is exactly what you want to see.
Yep. Yeah.
Perfect.
Very encouraging.
Yeah. Anything else? That was really that all I had for OTAs. Just that Jordan Love is developing as a rookie quarterback should, and the other rookies were doing well. I saw some good Jaden Reed stuff. He had a fumble with an interesting coaching moment. Matt LaFleur told him not to jump on the ball in practice, just like leave it alone. He caught the ball, was running, then left the ball behind. Just flat out dropped the ball while he was running, and Matt he dove on it in practice to recover it, and Coach LaFleur told him, hey, just don't do that because it's practice.
Oh, okay. I was
Yeah,
like, that makes
not
a lot more sense.
yeah,
Whatever
because
I
it's
was thinking.
practice. They don't want him getting hurt because he's one small, two a rookie, three important to their passing game, four
Yep.
it's May.
Yeah. Put it
um,
down a notch.
Luke Musgrave had a couple nice catches from what I saw on Twitter as well. So they're playing football. I'm excited.
They are playing football.
Well, it's just like it's getting close, right?
No, exactly. Yeah. It is.
It's
We're
it's May 24th. Soon enough it'll be June. Soon enough it'll be July, and then still be on the training camp.
2.5 months from the first preseason game. It'll
It'll
come up
it's
quick.
it'll it seems so far, but it'll come up quick.
Yeah.
So, all right, Jordan. Anything else to touch on? I think we covered our bases.
Cover the bases. I think we're done.
I don't know
That's
what
me.
I don't know what that was.
That's me doing like like the clip when
Oh,
they were about
the marker for syncing up audio and the visual for
roll sound and then
see see
action.
see you did. So that's the right way to do it. You went like it's supposed to be pivoting. You went like this, up like full up and down. Like I forget is that it's not Zohan, the old Adam Sandler movie. I think it's it's something. It is Zohan, isn't it? Where
I
he
think
does
it's either that or
that dumb
Dude,
Mike
where's my
Myers movie.
car? Oh,
No,
oh,
uh,
love
Love
guru.
Guru. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
do where's my cars? Zoltan.
Zoltan. That's
They
what I was
put their
thinking.
thumbs together to make a Z.
Yeah. No, yeah, that is definitely Love Guru or like I Dream of Genie or whatever.
Oh, it is the
Whatever.
genie. Where he puts his
It
hand together
is,
and he nods.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm doing something else different when I'm just like,
Yeah, it's just like beep. All right, we're off the rails.
yep.
Promo time. Um, as always, go check out Repod. Joinrepod.com/talk of the tundra. You can go listen to pods natively there. Talk with the community about the Packers, Bucks, Brewers, and pop culture with Make Time for This. Any sort of topic of podcast you want to check out, they have it over there on Repod. So we love it. Wish you guys would go check it out as well. Would appreciate it if you did. GSPN side, you can always check out all of the pods and all of the write-ups on Substack on gspn.info. Bucks wise, Jordan, or no, well, I guess, well, I'll get your Substack post in a minute. But Bucks wise, the Eurostep boys, Rohan and Ty, touched on the Bucks coaching search on Monday, and then it was very quickly put out of date by the report that the Bucks had narrowed down their search to Adrian Griffin, Nick Nurse, and Kenny Atkinson. With other reports coming out that they should be making their decision sometime this week. To make that podcast go back into relevancy, Adam and Ty hopped on an emergency pod, and that is in the Bucks feed as well to talk about that report. So go check out the Bucks feed for all things Milwaukee Bucks. Adam and Andrew Snyder will have a Cruising for a Bruising episode up this morning as you're listening to this because you're such a loyal listener and you are subscribed and you have already rated 5 stars. But they'll talk about the series win over the defending World Series champion Houston Astros after getting absolutely trounced on Monday. The Brewers aces, co-aces, I should say, Adrian Hauser and Colin Ray, shut out the Astros in 2 straight starts. So, plus to go with a bullpen that has found its footing after stumbling a little bit. So, go check out the Cruising for a Bruising episode for all things Brewers. Make time for this. Me and Adam, and a little bit of Andrew Snyder. Me and Adam kind of drowned out Andrew for 2.5 hours to talk about the latest Succession pod as the series finale is this Sunday. So go check out Succession, and I believe coming up soon, possibly today as you're listening to this, or sometime later this week or Monday,
Mm.
they will be releasing another episode. Don't quote me on it, even though it's a recorded podcast. I think on the Joaquin Phoenix movie Beau is Afraid. I'm like
Yes,
95% sure that's what their episode they're
you're
recording is.
correct. I believe you're correct.
So go check out that. And then Jordan, you dipped the pen a little beep beep, and wrote about the new soccer venture in Milwaukee and their name search.
It's ongoing. Daily matchups. It's a bracket style tournament. Um, and yeah, just talk about the fun that's being had of trying to find a name for the team and why it will ultimately mean a lot more than that when all is said and done. But yeah, a lot of fun. Checking in every day. I believe it's like usually like 10 a.m. every day that they release the next four names and then get through and on with the process and stuff like that. But yeah, very fun. Very fun.
What is your favorite name so
So
far?
far, ooh,
Do
good
you, do you
question.
want me to go through them quick
I think I know all of them, but for the
for
listener,
the listeners?
yeah.
So on Monday, this has been going on daily. The matchup was the Milwaukee Tallboys versus the Milwaukee Confluence, and the Milwaukee Barons versus the Milwaukee Cheese. Tuesday, it was the Lake Effect versus the Milwaukee Wings. Then Milwaukee Alliance versus the Milwaukee Masons. And then today was the Milwaukee Union versus the Milwaukee Brigade. And then the Milwaukee Ride versus Future Milwaukee. So those are the 6 matchups that have been going on right now. And Jordan, what is your favorite name so far?
I'd probably go Barons. I'll go Barons. Um, in part because of the reasons of there's a supporters group called the Milwaukee Barons. They wanted a team, be a nice little tribute of fan organized effort to bring a soccer team, pro soccer team to the city and all that stuff. So I like Lake Effects. I do like Milwaukee Union too, but I think Milwaukee Barons. What is yours? What
I
is
am
yours?
firmly Team Tallboys.
I knew you would be.
Milwaukee
It is a
Tallboys
good
is a
name.
good name.
It's a good name.
Like it's just a fun name. Like they could have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
Plus, like most soccer players are short, so that'd be just like a fun little
Like juxtaposition.
yeah,
Yeah, you're really talking about like the defenders, if anything, because they're just like
yeah,
planted and be like, okay, you just have to get in the way.
exactly. So yeah, I'm Team Tallboys, but hoping that they have a couple of other better names that come through. So it'll be good. The just to give them some love, they announced today that um they're having a couple surprises into their name contest, and they'll pick 2 suggestions from the tweet replies. But they did like also like Facebook ones, and they posted a screenshot that just said opens Facebook, closes Facebook, and the one of the suggested team names
Top one,
is
right?
yeah, the Packers that can't use their hands. Teamy McTeam Face, the Milwaukee Cannibals. That's a dark one.
Very
Critically dark one. Really wish I had read that one, but
no.
not great. The Milwaukee Bubblers. That'd be a funny one because obviously. So, anything else we missed? I think that's it for pods and GSPN stuff. Oh, Eugene wrote something. What did
Yes,
Gene wrote something on?
the Bucks not playing for a very long time. That's what it was. The conceit of the article was that.
Got it.
Yeah, check out the Substack for that. Also, Adam and I are tentatively recording tomorrow, but we're also on lockdown of like, are they going to actually have a coach hire within the next 24 to 48 hours? We don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
That's kind of those days now with uh, given how the search has progressed very fast.
Just one of
After
those days.
you want to break stuff. That's right.
That's it, folks. We are signing off for the week. You'll hear back from us again soon. Thank you so much for listening. We appreciate all of you guys. And Jordan, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.